Usually when we talk about the human brain, we picture like a supercomputer, limitless processing power, able to render complex dreams and solve quantum equations.
Right, a true marvel of biological engineering.
But then you try to remember a three-item grocery list while driving, and suddenly that supercomputer just crashes. The processing grinds to an absolute halt.
Yeah, that exact bottleneck is actually why David Allen's framework Getting Things Done, or GTD, completely took over the productivity world. I mean, we all know the basic promise, right?
Yeah, capture every open loop into an external system so your brain can finally relax.
Exactly. But today we're doing a deep dive for you, taking official setup guides, some heavy cognitive science papers, and a few really intense Reddit debates to actually stress test that promise.
Okay, let's unpack this. We've got this massive framework designed to process every single piece of input. But does treating our entire lives like a data entry project actually make us better or just busier? Let's start with the foundational idea of the book, which is that the mind is for having ideas, not holding them.
Right, and the cognitive science actually backs him up completely here. This is factual. Our working memory is incredibly limited. I mean, the brain is an intrinsically active medium, so
It's built to process, not to store, right?
exactly. It's built to process information, not to store static, unchanging details. If you try to hold on to your to-do list mentally, your brain experiences constant interference. It's constantly pinging you, and that's where the stress comes from.
Oh, so it's exactly like closing background apps on your phone to free up your mental RAM.
Yeah.
You're just stopping the battery drain.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
So if our mental RAM is really that limited, how do we keep from overloading it with, tiny annoyances?
Well, that's where the famous 2-minute rule comes in. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, you just do it right then and there.
Yeah.
And the research proves he's spot on with this because of the hidden cost of context switching.
Oh, right, because if you put it off, you have to rethink it all over again later.
Yeah, exactly. If you defer a tiny task, you have to spend mental energy later just to remember what the task was, where it lives, and why it mattered. Doing it immediately saves you from the exhaustion of reloading that whole mental set.
Okay, dumping my brain into an inbox and instantly knocking out 2-minute emails makes total sense. But where the system totally loses me is when I look at a massive, complex project like writing a master's thesis. GTD tells me I just need to find the concrete next action. But that feels completely out of touch with how real, messy work actually happens.
What's fascinating here is that this is the exact spot where GTD becomes highly speculative and honestly a bit exaggerated. It relies heavily on something called task universalism.
Task universalism.
Yeah, it's the false assumption that all work is created equal at the execution level.
Wait, so treating profound, ambiguous tasks the exact same as shallow tasks? Like comparing writing a thesis to buying dog food or replacing a light bulb.
Precisely. And that's why the system can break down. The friction of ambiguity actually paralyzes the brain. When you're trying to figure out a 200-year vision for a farm or synthesize a thesis, the next action isn't always a physical, executable step.
Yeah, sometimes the action is just staring at a wall for an hour until a concept clicks.
Right, you can't neatly categorize an epiphany.
And looking at the system as a whole, especially diving into those intense Outlook setup guides we reviewed, I started noticing a massive gap in the logic.
Oh, the administrative upkeep.
Yeah. The entire GTD machine assumes you will constantly have the peak mental clarity and energy required to maintain, review, and perfectly organize all these lists, folders, and tags.
It's a huge vulnerability, honestly. The framework demands a level of administrative upkeep that can actually deplete the very cognitive energy you're trying to save in the first place.
But honestly, isn't endlessly categorizing our tasks just a sophisticated form of procrastination?
Oh, absolutely. We've all spent 3 hours color-coding a Notion board or perfectly organizing our tags just to avoid doing the actual work. I mean, it feels productive, but you aren't producing anything.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Author Cal Newport critiques this exact universalism. He argues GTD is absolutely perfect for shallow work, cranking widgets, answering emails, paying bills, but it completely falls apart for deep work.
Yeah, and looking at the cognitive demands of deep work, Newport's view is incredibly valid. Deep work requires a messy, unstructured, and often uncomfortable level of focus.
So GTD is just for the administrative clutter.
Right, it's fantastic for clearing the deck, sweeping away that clutter, but a rigid checklist cannot manufacture deep creative breakthroughs.
So you essentially have to step outside the system to actually do the profound stuff.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the core message is really this. GTD is a highly powerful tool for managing administrative overload. The mechanics of externalizing your memory and utilizing the 2-minute rule are brilliantly effective.
But applying it to everything is where it fails.
Exactly. Applying rigid next actions to complex creative goals is just unsupported by how creativity actually functions. Realistically, you should use GTD to sweep away your shallow tasks, but completely abandon the system when you sit down to do your deep, meaningful work.
So what does this all mean for you? If our personal productivity systems get too perfectly organized and frictionless, do we risk optimizing away the very chaos and messiness where true creativity actually happens? Maybe we shouldn't be so afraid of letting our mental supercomputers crash every once in a while.